Mighty Atom said, yes, I can, and showed him, and handed him a piece of metal, said, let's see you try it. And Larry took the bar, and actually using the opposite way of bending a bar, Mighty Atom said, no, you can't bend it that way. You got to use your torque. You need your shoulders, and you have to bend it this way. And Larry said, no, this is how I'm comfortable. And he succeeded in bending the bar. At that point, I think the Mighty Atom may have realized that he found somebody who, somebody who could be a chip off the old block, and offered to take Larry under his wing. And eventually, Larry, started with his act. Mighty Atom said, well, what can you do? He said, well, I can lift the sledgehammer, and I can lift it from the end. And Mighty Atom was quite impressed. He knew the physics that I just showed you, and he said, okay, show me what you can do. And sure enough, Larry showed him how he could lift the handles. And soon afterwards, the Mighty Atom said to Larry, I'm taking you on a road trip. Where are we going? We're going to Madison Square Garden, and you're going to perform in Madison Square Garden. And so Larry became Slim the Hammerman and started performing around with the Mighty Atom. I think, Larry, you learned a lot from the Mighty Atom, from his ability to control his mind. And he became your mentor, and probably, I'm not exaggerating, your best friend. And the only rival that you had to your wife surely would have been Slim, if Slim was the Mighty Atom. Some of the performances that Slim would do, again, Mighty Atom trick of bending a bar on his bridge of his nose, breaking chains with your chest, so you expand your chest quickly and burst the chains. He did not do some tricks, though, that the Mighty Atom did. For example, the Mighty Atom could bite chain and break a chain with his teeth. You never did that. Also, the Mighty Atom, with the hair, one time actually had the comb, tied it to an airplane, a propeller craft, of course, not a jet, and then held the airplane back with his hair from taking off. Okay. Now, I think he only did that twice.
We did a show in New York where he towed a line of cars with his hair.
That is, cars that were tied, together in a row. I think it was 5, might have been up to 5 cars with passengers, and he towed it like this with his hair. And some of this, again, some of it's on the trailer, some of it's in the actual movie about the Mighty Atom. But Slim, based here in Pottstown, in South Pottstown, where he still resides, also would perform with the Mighty Atom. Now, some of these next photos I wanted to show you because these are photos from the garage. Slim's wife called it the dungeon, but it's more of a shrine to the history of strongmen, particularly the Mighty Atom, but all strongmen, and showing a lot of what the tools of the trade, some of the weights, the bars that they bent. So I'm just going to show you some of these photographs. Pictures of the Mighty Atom. Now, interesting. I said that the Mighty Atom, he was a very religious man. He also was a man who hated injustice, and he was performing in a time in the United States when there was great injustice. He was performing in the 1930s during a period of rising anti-Semitism. This was a period of time when the American Nazi Party had been established, and he actually found himself in conflict with American Nazis. And there is a story that is told in the book, and as well as in the movie, about how he took on a bunch of Nazi thugs, beat the crap out of them, He used a Hank Greenberg baseball bat, which of course was somewhat ironic. And when called upon, when taken into the judge looked at him, all 5'4", and said, "You beat up all these guys?" He said, "Yeah, with my Hank Greenberg bat." The judge threw the case out because, of course, how could this little man beat up this, But this was the story of the Mighty Atom. Incredibly deep faith. Another question that comes out: how could he perform so long into life? I mean, here he is doing his strongman acts well into his 70s and into his early 80s. And still, like I said, up until the day he died. Where did that come from? Not only was it his body, of course, his mind, but where did that will come from to keep performing beyond the period when most people would have been long retired and sitting in a rocking chair? I don't have the answer. I don't know how he did it. As a young man, I understand. But how he did it when you were with him is quite amazing. Probably his will was so deep that he just he could never stop. His ego was also pretty big too. That he would never stop. He could never stop performing. That he fed off of other people. He fed off the crowd, and that just made him want to do it more and more. It's funny that at the end of his life, after he died, all the obituaries came out all over the country about the Mighty Hammer, the Mighty Atom, and the obituaries would say, like, died at 93 or 90 years old or 95 years old. It was all rubbish. He was born in 1892. He died in 1977. You do the math. He was 84 years old. But all these obituaries got it wrong. They all put his age much older. And that was because every time he went around, he always added 5 or 10 years to his age. His sons, again, they are in the movie and in the trailer. His sons went into the strongman act with the Mighty Atom, performed with him, and did incredible feats. He had one son, Michael, who recently passed away, but at age 93, and this is a legitimate 93, not a faux 93. That in this movie, he is towing a car with people in it with his teeth, putting it in his mouth, putting a leather, the end of the rope in his mouth on a leather bit, and pulling it on a street in New York in front of a big crowd. I think it was America Got Talent might have been the show that did it. And he succeeded in pulling this car across the finish line at age 93. So it takes an incredible, not only strength, but incredible amount of will, obviously, to be able to perform at that. And probably, which should give us all hope that when we're that age, maybe we might have some talent as well. I love this photo, this picture, because it shows the spiritual relationship between Larry and Joe Greenstein. I can't help but stare at it because, Slim, your ability to perform really is a result of your relationship to Joe. And when Joe passed away, the truck was at Zern's, and Larry had it hauled to his house in south of South Pottstown. All these photographs, part of his collection, and all the memorabilia, the posters and stuff, was brought to Larry's garage, where it is today. So we, of course, would like to see something happen whereby it's kept in a permanent collection somewhere, a museum of some sort. And not only to Slim and not only to the Mighty Atom, but to the entire world of strongmen, old-time strongmen. and women. They're old-time strong men and women. Some more photographs. This is a much younger version of Larry, obviously. Interesting also, a lot of his posters were in Yiddish. Because again, he was performing in New York on vaudeville. Many of the people who would have been paying customers would have been Jewish and might have been first generation, so Yiddish would have been their first language. Some more photographs. Again, Ripley's Believe It or Not had a number of articles on the Mighty Atom, and apparently when Ripley's and Guinness Book of World Records, when they put somebody in, they double and triple check to make sure that this is legitimate. And of course, in the Mighty Atom's case, it all was legitimate. Larry tells a story about how they wanted him to be put into Ripley's, and he said, well, basically, what's in it for me? And they said, well, basically, we don't get anything for it. Well, if I'm not going to get anything for it, then you can't have it. It's my performance. But he did have a number of records. Slim and the Mighty Atom have a number of records that will most likely never, ever be broken. And I can't possibly imagine some of these records. But there'd probably be some argument about which were the most amazing. Certainly keeping a plane from taking off with your hair. He also, though, did another act with an aircraft where he loaded all his pockets with lead, so he weighted himself down, and he was hung by his hair from an airplane. I think it might have been like a DC-3 or something, but a prop plane, and he was flying underneath the plane at speed with all this weight on him hanging by his hair, and I think it almost killed him. I think they only did that trick once. But again, during those years, they were always looking for new acts to follow, new ideas of how to keep the people, the paying customers, coming to the act. Life Force, Mind Over Matter. Ed Spielman. This is a lecture demonstration by Ed Spielman. Ed was a close friend of both Slim's and the Mighty Atom. He is also the author of the book, The Mighty Atom, that is here. It's Life and Times of Joe Greenstein, Biography of a Superhuman, was written by Ed. And it is available. I think the book can be found. There are some copies here, I guess, that were brought by Larry to this historical society. But I think the book would be available probably online. Most interesting, though, is the movie. I did buy it. It's about an hour long. It was produced by his grandson, and it has a number of wonderful clips of both Mighty Atom and a little bit about Slim. Anyway, that's a bit about the presentation. I would raise this. This is the truck. Unfortunately, it's seen its better days and would need to be completely rebuilt. But this is the truck that you saw at Zern's, and he lived in it when he would perform. When he came to Gilbertsville, or when
he used to sleep in the part that's over the cab. That's where the bed was.
Yes. The back was where he sold his products out of and did his performances. So anyway, at this point, let's see if we can get the clips on. But while we wait to get that up, any comments or questions or?
I have one comment. I first saw the Mighty Atom at Freezy's Heights. Anybody remember Freezy's Heights from Pottstown?
Yeah.
On State Street?
Yeah.
One thing he did, after one of his performances, the crowd was dissipating, and there was a woman, or somebody talking to him, and he said, she was asking, how do you do these various strengths acts? And he said, I can do one thing not many people can do. He said, straight up, let his arms hang down in front of him. He could stretch his knees without bending over. tried it sometime.
I think I may have the video.
Okay, before you go to that, right before you go to that, one other thing, and we'll get your question after the video. One other thing that, that I heard about the Mighty Atom was that he had the ability to stop his heart, to stop his pulse. Okay, now I can't verify that. I mean, that seems to be that was reported that he could actually put himself in a trance, be able to stop his pulse. Now, that sounds to me like if that is beyond the ability, that is where you have 100% control over your mind and body. You can't do any more than that. And then turn your heart back on again. Okay, let's.
In your lifetime, what's the greatest feat of strength you've ever seen? How about a 5'4" man who stopped the plane from taking off with his hair?
He's the Godfather. It starts with him. Joe Greenstein was really like a real-life superhero.
George Reeves, the actor who played Superman, with bending iron bars around criminals. Here was the Mighty Atom bending these same kind of bars, live, real.
He could bend steel bars with his hair. He could bite a nail in half.
My father had to bite through the chains, free himself, and get out of the path of the oncoming speeding car.
I meet people all the time who think this is impossible, that there's a trick to it.
That's his grandson.
There's no trick. He could do things that people 3 or 4 times his size just couldn't do.
You have to have some tremendous sinews, tendons, ligaments to be able to do the things he did.
And the very fact that he's Jewish.
It was not common to see a Jewish athlete performing at that time.
There was a lot of prejudice.
He was standing up to Nazism in America.
Your mind has control of what power is allowed to come out of your body.
He became an expert at unlocking his mind.
The intensity of his concentration. He was going to accomplish it, and that was it.
His philosophy was that there's no such thing as a small man. Nothing is impossible.
That's the Mighty Atom. And again, this is a trailer for a movie that was just produced in 2017. So it's a fairly new movie. Like I said, you can actually get it online. The movie itself is about an hour long, and it is filled with some really wonderful clips of that era. Now, as you get ready for before we go to that, you had a question?
I've got a question. I was honored to be there when he came to Boy Scout Troop 95 at Cedarville Church. So this might have been like the 80s?
No, it would have been the 70s.
70s? My son was no, it was later than that.
Well, he died in 19... You're talking
Not
about...
Adam. Sam.
Oh,
the
Sam.
Adam. Yeah. It was in the 80s, and it was very nice of him to come and demonstrate for the young Boy Scouts.
Great.
I'm very honored.
Great. Well, this is Slim showing his talents. There's an edge on that, by the way, if you notice.
Yeah.
Don't try this at home.
Okay.
that? Now, we have to say that Slim had the advantage of having worked in a quarry all his life with sledgehammers. You don't have, yeah, you can stop. This is just a...
Today is October 15th, 2018.
And so having that and being built like Larry is built, tall and obviously has some strong muscle mass, but being, having that sledgehammer, 12 hours or more a day, every day, must have really built up his wrists and his hands, his grip. So beyond the normal strongman ability, he had that extra ability because of having a uniquely strong wrist and hands. So that's why even the strongest of strongmen may not have that ability to lift that sledgehammer, like I explained, because of the physics. Any other comments or questions from somebody who saw,
Just wanted to say that, you talked about my dad being the protege of Mighty Atom. He has some proteges in the room. So if they could just stand up and introduce themselves. And Tom, where's Tom?
Yeah, come on, stand up.
Stand up. So they've, all of you stand up. They've spent many long hours. And what I will say is one of the people that you showed us a clip did a movie, and he was a tiny guy, Chris Shack. He was tiny. And so, having watched all of this process, there is quite a unique following. I don't know how many strongmen would you say are in that group of followers, that attend the conference, the annual banquet. I mean, probably 100. And so they're still there. They're coming.
Yeah. Do you consider yourselves part of the old-time strongman tradition?
Absolutely. Actually, I have a web series in development, myself and Chris in it, and it's based on a guy who does all this stuff. I mean, it's a made-for-TV kind of story, anybody in that community, so yeah, absolutely, and hope I can do my
all
part.
up to the Mighty Atom.
He's your inspiration.
Yeah, doing my part to keep the
So we gotta go through Slim.
But the strange part about it is, he was so small, he only come up to about here on me. And what really blew my mind is that he was Jewish. I always took Jewish people as very intelligent people, not people who had physical strength.
Well, he was intelligent, too.
But he was a bad businessman.
But he was a bad businessman.
I think with him it was mind over matter.
Yes. But obviously, much of his skills, much of the performances that he did, will never be replicated. I mean, this was one individual on the planet at one particular time